Yeah?
One more minute.
Oh, Sean? Okay.
Yeah, we still have one more minute on our end.
Okay. All right, that's fine. That's the official one.
That's the official one.
Forget what the atomic clock said. I'll have a call to order for the June 17th, 2021 meeting of the Planning Commission. And if I could have a roll call, please, Lena.
Yes, of course. Commissioner Ung.
Here.
Commissioner Hensley.
Here.
Commissioner Berg.
Here.
Commissioner Godek.
Here.
Commissioner Gaddis.
Here.
Commissioner Boswell.
Here.
And Vice Chair Topero.
Here. And if I could ask Commissioner Godek to lead us in a salute to the flag, please. All right, then put my hand on her. I think
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Right. Thank you for that. So now we will move to the, to approve the order of the agenda. So
Motion to approve the order of the agenda.
okay, made by Commissioner Hensley, and do we have a second?
Just trying to plug in. I don't know how to.
Somebody's trying to.
Oh, I think Mr. Mustafa, you are not on mute. So you might want to mute yourself right now because we can hear you.
Oh, sorry.
No problem. No problem. Okay, so we have a motion, Commissioner Hensley. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, Commissioner Godek. I will call a roll call for the approval of the agenda. Commissioner Godek?
Yes.
Commissioner Hensley?
Yes.
Commissioner Ung?
Yes.
Commissioner Boswell?
Yes.
Commissioner Gaddis?
Yes.
And Commissioner Berg.
Yes.
And I want to take this moment right now, just out of the agenda, just to welcome our two new commissioners, Mr. Rob Gaddis and Mr. Doug Boswell, who've been very active in city matters over the years. So we welcome you to this commission, and we have a full deck of cards. We're operating on all cylinders now, so watch out. We're ready for, we've got quite an agenda for today. Okay, so with everyone approving the order of the agenda, so moved. So now we have the blue folder items, which I believe we received two blue folder items, which are minutes from the May meeting, if I remember both of them. And so I think only the commissioners, which were commissioners at that time, can actually vote on approving these, correct, Lena?
Everyone can approve on receive and filing at the moment.
Okay.
We reached that point of the agenda on the consent calendar. Yes, only the commissioners that were present at the May meeting should vote on those minutes.
Okay. So if everyone is happy with those two blue folder items, I think there was some modification by Commissioner Berg that were incorporated for both of them. So if you want to make a motion or someone to.
Yeah, motion to receive and file blue folder items.
Okay, by Commissioner Ong, and a second by.
I'll second.
Second.
Okay, by Commissioner Godek. So here we go. This is to receive and file the 2 blue folder items. This is Commissioner Godek. I've got you a list.
Yes.
So you'll be first.
Yeah, I'll be ready going forward. Yes.
Ladies first, I thought. Okay, and then Commissioner Hensley,
Yes.
Commissioner Ung,
Yes.
Commissioner Boswell.
Yes.
Thank you. Commissioner Gaddis
Yes.
and Commissioner Berg.
Yes.
And I vote yes. Okay, very good. So now we move to the consent calendar. Business items, except those formally noticed for public hearing or those pulled for discussion, are assigned to the consent calendar. The commission members may request that any consent calendar items be removed, discussed, and acted upon separately. Items removed from the consent calendar will be taken up under the excluded consent calendar section below. Those items remaining on the consent calendar will be approved in one motion. The chair will call on anyone wishing to address the commission on any consent calendar item on the agenda which has not been pulled by the commission for discussion. Each speaker will be permitted to speak only once, and comments will be limited to a total of 3 minutes. So we have 3 items on the consent calendar. Or does anybody want to approve them, or does anybody want to pull any of those items? Okay, so if no one wants to pull any items, I would recommend.
I believe Commissioner I believe Commissioner Hensley has.
Oh, his hand up. I'm sorry, I didn't see the little hand. So yes, Commissioner Hensley, please.
Yeah, I would just like to pull item F2, please.
Okay, so we will go ahead and pull item F2. And so then if we can have, if there's no other items to be pulled, if we can have a motion to approve items F1 and F3.
Motion to approve.
Motion.
Okay, a motion to approve by Commissioner Godek and a second from
Second
by Commissioner, who was it? Commissioner Berg. Okay, very good. So Commissioner Godek,
Yes.
Commissioner Hensley,
All right, just a confirmation, just to confirm, this is approving the consent calendar except item F2, right?
except F2, correct,
Okay,
yes.
all right, thank you. Yes.
Okay, Commissioner Ung,
Yes.
Commissioner Boswell,
Yes.
Commissioner Gaddis,
Yes.
and Commissioner Berg,
Yes.
and myself, yes. So those are to receive and file. And now under item G, the excluded consent calendar, we will discuss item F2, which Commissioner Hensley has pulled.
Yep. I just had, I had some edits that I wanted to make, mostly to the variance hearing part of the minutes, but I didn't get a chance to type them up. So if it's okay with the commission, I'd like to make a motion to continue item F2 to the July Planning Commission meeting, but to include Commissioner Berg's blue folder edits in that copy.
Very good. Okay, so would you like to make a motion to do that?
Oh, sorry, yeah, that was a motion to continue item F2 to the July Planning Commission.
Okay, and incorporating Commissioner Berg's.
Yeah.
Okay,
Correct,
all right. Do I have a
incorporating
second
Commissioner Berg.
on that motion?
I'll second that.
Okay, seconded by Commissioner Berg. Okay, here we go again. Commissioner Godek,
Yes.
Commissioner Hensley,
Yes.
Commissioner Ung,
Yes.
Commissioner Boswell,
Yes.
Commissioner Gaddis,
Yes.
and Commissioner Berg,
Yes.
and myself, yes. So that takes care of item G. So item H, we have public participation on non-agenda items. Do we have any non-agenda items?
So there are no e-comments for non-agenda items. We don't have any speakers for non-agenda items. So you'll just, there's just the receive and file blue folder.
That's the Beach Cities Health District, right?
Correct, yeah. So you just have some written comments on non-agenda.
Yes, yes, okay. So if we can have a motion to receive and file the comments that were submitted, I believe by Mark Nelson, I think is the name. For the Beach
Yes, and then you had at the back of that, I think you had one other non-agenda item comment on a beach event taking place as well.
Oh, yes, right. Yeah. So, Commissioner Hensley.
a comment. That blue folder that we got for non-agenda from the Beach City Summer Safety Event, would it be useful to actually read it? So otherwise nobody knows. I think their intention was to quote unquote advertise it.
It's an extremely large document.
Oh, sorry, not Mr. Nelson's, but the one we just got for a blue folder today from the Beach City Summer Safety Event on July 1st.
Yes, you know what, I can pull it up and then just
I'll put it on the screen.
real quick, bear with me one moment.
I've got the agenda on the iPad and I've got the blue folders on my phone and running out of screen.
That's all right. Yes. Yeah. And then, because it came behind. So there were two blue folder written comments. So the first one was on BCHD, but then there was another one that came in, and it came in from a representative of, I believe, Behavioral Health Services. Mm-hmm. They're a nonprofit organization that's funded by the LA County Department of Public Health, Substance Abuse Prevention and Control. They provide teen, drug, and alcohol prevention services in the South Bay. So they wanted to announce an upcoming event called the Beach City Summer Safety Event, where Hermosa Beach Police Chief Paul LeBron and will be the featured guest speaker. So it is a Zoom event that will be held on Thursday, July the 1st, 2021 at 4 p.m. by Zoom. And then they did include a flyer for the event. Let me see if I can share my screen real quick. And then that way, okay, so this is the flyer. So again, July 2021 from 4 p.m. This would be the Zoom link, and then the featured guest speaker, and then they'll discuss risks for young drivers, including alcohol, drugs, and then everything in between. There'll be a Q&A with the police chief, and then just having a safe summer and preparing for fall. So we'll have this will become part of the agenda item once it's online. So anyone interested can just click on tonight's meeting from the agenda webpage on the city's website, and then can find this information, or they can always just email planning as well, planningredondo@redondo.org, and we'll provide them this information as well.
Okay, thank you so much for that. And it's good timing too, because with the 4th of July weekend coming up, things get kind of crazy. So it's kind of a good prep for, keeping everybody won't go too crazy. All right, very good. So then we need a motion to receive and file both documents.
Motion to receive and file public written comments on non-agenda items.
Okay, first by Commissioner Hensley, and a second from?
Second, Commissioner Ong.
Commissioner Ong. Okay, so here we go. So to receive and file the written comments on the non-agenda items, Commissioner Godek?
Yes.
Commissioner Hensley?
Yes.
Commissioner Ong?
Yes.
Commissioner Boswell?
Yes.
Gaddis?
Yes.
And Commissioner Berg?
Yes.
And myself, yes. So all in favor, and so we have received and filed. Item I, we move on to the ex parte communications. This section is intended to allow all officials the opportunity to reveal any disclosure or ex parte communication about the following public hearings. Do we have any commissioner? I will go down the list, and please speak up if you have had any ex parte communication. Commissioner Godek.
Yes, I spoke with Commissioner Berg regarding items J1 and J2.
Okay. Commissioner Hensley.
For item J1, I spoke with staff and then I visited the site. For item J2, I spoke with staff, and item J3 is nothing.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Ong?
None.
Commissioner Boswell? Well, you're new, so I would have assumed maybe you do.
You're on mute, Doug. So am I being asked if I've had ex parte communications with anyone in regards to, I'm looking at J1?
Yeah, right now it's for J1, J2, and yes, correct.
And if I'm looking at the right document, pardon my amateurness, this is the hydrogen fueling station?
No. That was last month.
So this is which? I've got the
The
wrong.
convenience store and
Sorry?
the convenience store item.
Yes.
And then the other one was the state mandate with the,
Change in sequence.
yeah.
The vehicle miles
Yes.
traveled.
It called
I spoke briefly about both with Rob Gaddis earlier today.
Okay. All right. Commissioner Gaddis?
Yes, I spoke on J1 and J2 briefly with Doug Boswell today. And on J2, I spoke with Mayor Bill Brand and members of the public.
Okay. All right. Very good. Commissioner Berg?
Yes, I spoke with Commissioner Godek about J1 and J2, and I spoke with the appellant for J1 and also visited the site.
Okay, very good. And myself, none. So that takes care of item I. So we move on to our first public hearing, which is item J1 for consideration of exempt declaration, conditional use permit and planning commission design review to allow the conversion of existing automobile service area to a convenience store for an existing service station on property located within a commercial C2 zone at 1200 Barrel Avenue. So I'm assuming staff has a presentation for us.
Motion to open the public hearing?
Yes. Motion to open a public hearing by Commissioner Ung. And can I have a second on that?
Second,
Second by Commissioner Berg. So all in favor, Commissioner Godek,
Yes.
Commissioner Hensley,
Yes.
Commissioner Ung,
Yes.
Commissioner Boswell,
Yes.
Commissioner Gaddis,
Yes.
Commissioner Berg,
yes.
and myself, yes. So the public hearing is open, and then I'd like to administer the oath, which Lena, I sent you an email because I couldn't find the verbiage. So maybe if you can pop it up on the screen.
Oh, yes, you know what, I can, yeah, I did reply to that email, but it was right before this meeting, so, let me see here.
Okay, well, then it would be in my email then. I can,
Yeah, see, let me know if you don't.
yeah, no, I have it here.
Okay.
Oh, it's attachment. Okay, there we go. I need to print it out, I think, because, okay, so for those individuals who are going to be speaking on items J1 and J2, if you could please take this following oath. And so you'll have to unmute yourself. Do each of you swear or affirm that the testimony you shall give shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
And then, Mr. Batmi, Mr. But, okay, Mustafa. There's two Mustafas there, so,
Did I lack experience? I apologize.
okay, no, I just see two with the same. And then anyone else? Nico Boyd Fair and Michael Kennedy are going to be speaking today.
Yes.
So do you take the oath?
I do.
Yes. I need to hear a yes.
Yes.
Okay, Michael Kennedy.
Yes.
Okay, all right, very good. So then we will go ahead and have the presentation. Thank you so much for that. A lot of formalities, but what we have to do. So bear with us, please. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. I'd like to introduce Marianne Gastelum, and she will be presenting on item J1, as well as Sean Scully is available for any questions as we move through this particular project.
Great, thank you.
All right, bear with me. Okay, here we go.
Okay.
Yay. All right. So good evening, commissioners. The item before you this evening is to allow the conversion of an existing automobile service bay area into a convenience store within the existing gas station building. Here's an aerial view and the land use map.
Marianne, we can't see your presentation.
You need to share screen. We're not seeing it.
Thought I did. Okay.
Michael, share screen at the bottom of the screen.
Oh, there's Lena.
Lena to the rescue.
Go back to your meeting. Sorry, don't mind me.
It's okay.
And go back to the meeting. See, so open up that right there.
Okay.
And then we go to share screen down here. And then click on here.
Okay.
And then share.
All right.
There.
I was ready to roll and everything.
There we go.
You're ready now. And then if you can maximize the screen so we can,
Nope, that minimized it.
I think Control L puts it in presentation mode.
That help?
That helps.
Can you? Are you able to do PDF?
She is in PDF. We are in PDF.
Yeah, can you do it in a PDF mode or with a PDF?
Yeah, if you go to View.
Is that that's too big, right?
yeah, but there's a way to,
Go to View.
Yeah, go to View and there's a full screen mode.
yeah, full screen. There you
Oh, not on yours.
Okay. Oh, it's grayed out. All right.
Straight out.
Okay, well, we'll just limp along here with this.
Work with this. Okay.
And it, you know,
I mean, does this help if I increase the percentage? Does it help at all?
I think that's good.
yeah.
I see that pretty well.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. All right. Okay. All right.
No worries.
All right. Thank you, Lena. Thank you, Sean. Thank you, everyone. Anyways, the item before you this evening is for the conversion of an existing automobile service bay area that is within the existing building of a gas station that's located at 1200 Burl. Here's an aerial view and a copy of the land use map. The Shell station is at the corner of Prospect and Burl Street. Okay, so sorry about the larger size. So it's located at the southeast corner of Burl and Prospect. The site is zone C2 commercial. The subject site was part of the original neighborhood center development that occurred back in the late 1960s. Properties to the east are zone C2. Properties to the west across Prospect are zoned R1, single family. Properties to the north are zoned residential medium density, RMD. And then properties to the south are Beach Cities Health District and medical. Here's a photograph of,
Excuse me, you know, we're missing out a lot. Maybe you could change it from 150 to maybe 130
okay,
or 125. Yeah, I think we'll,
okay, 125.
yeah.
All right. So here's a copy or a photo of the existing service station. Again, this was all part of the original development that was back in 1969. So before you this evening are applications for a conditional use permit and planning commission design review. So a conditional use permit is required when adding an additional use to an existing vehicle service station. The applicant seeks approval to add the operation of the convenience store within the existing 2,252 square foot gas station building. So within this building, there's 3 service bays that have closed down. There's a storage area in the back, and there's a small retail area that was there, but primarily it's being used now for the cashier. There is a restroom that has outside access. So this entire building inside will be converted to the new convenience store. And it's typical of other convenience stores located throughout the city that are at gas station sites. There will be no alcohol sales, and tobacco sales will require a local retail permit once they obtain their conditional use permit per the city's recently adopted ordinance. Here's a rendering of the proposed modifications to the exterior of the building. The service bay door windows will be replaced with glass. There'll be a double swinging door. Inside, there'll be merchandise shelves. They'll have the windows will definitely improve the look of the building. So the existing building, again, remains the same, and all of the vehicle accesses off of Prospect and Burl will remain. It's just the outside of the building being remodeled and the inside use. The exterior of the building will be remodeled to accommodate the new entrance. The existing board and batten will be replaced with smooth stucco. And the next slide are the two side elevations and then the rear building elevation, which is towards the Dollar Tree store. So Planning Commission design review is due to the size of the shopping center, which combined is over 10,000 square feet of land. The conversion of the structure, which is over 1,000 square feet, and the unique nature of this site. Again, the service station was part of the original neighborhood community shopping center. The existing building will remain. There will be tenant improvements to the interior. There'll be modifications to the exterior that will complement the shopping center. The proposed conversion and renovation of the existing vehicle service station to a convenience store can be accommodated at this site and with no adverse impacts on the neighborhood or the surrounding property. And Planning Division recommends approval. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Staff Councilor. Okay. Do we have some discussion from the owners, perhaps?
Hello, good evening. This is Mustafa.
Identify yourself, please, because both of you have the same name. So,
Well,
on the
this is Mustafa Badawi, architect.
with your
Using the same email that I've received to enter, so I'm the real Mustafa here.
Okay.
Madam the Chair and the Honorable Cameron, sorry. I don't know why you get tongue-tied with that. Commissioners, it's been beautiful to work with the city of Redondo Beach and the staff. Been just immaculately and great to work with each and everyone. And Marianne did a very wonderful job also to work with us and throughout the whole process of getting this ready. And also she's done a great job introducing the project. There's so little I can say. She's done a great, that's one of the things that when you do a great job, you don't leave an opportunity to others to say much. Well, the project is basically taken out those mechanical bays because as we all know from economics and where the economy of automobile is going, they're not as not as they were in the past and as basically economically feasible for the clients. So the client decided to enlarge his retail, which used to be a 600 square feet, 610, and combine it with the 1,138 square feet of mechanical bay to end up with about 1,748 square feet of retail. And with the storage in the back will remain the same and everything. And in the process of designing this, we came with a few solutions and the staff helped us very well to maintain course of matching the existing retail. And I think that was a very good idea and a very good approach to this project. Again, the gas station is not out there in a vacuum. It belongs to a retail. where the gas station in the past were stepped away from the retail. Somebody painted in white and introduced new things to it. Right now, I think we are in the right steps to bring it back into the retail and match the retail and everything. And so that's in a facade. And I believe that this project will yield a very good benefit to the city and its surrounding, because it will bring an element that belongs to that retail and probably remove an element that may be beneficial to the city from a curb appeal, especially from a corner where I don't know if I remember my age or mechanic shops had a used car parked on the lot somewhere with a for sale sign, and that's all I can picture when I hear a mechanical bay. So we do really believe in this project, and we hope that the city see it for the way it is. And also, because I just want to touch one more thing: the parking. This is a condominium parking along with the rest of the retail. There's plenty of parking to go around, but we work with the city as well to, I believe we did provide about 9 parkings, including 1 ADA, and enhance the parking situation. And I would like to thank the city for the time taken. I appreciate the commissioner that took step in this and worked hard to look into this project and review it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Would the owner like to identify himself and give a few words to the commission?
Hi, my name is Vladimir. I'm the owner of the station. About myself, I've been in business 25 years in gas station business, and the way I run my business has to be best in the town. That's how my stations are. Number 1 for me is the safety for the customer. Number 2, environmental safety. That's my challenge to convert this site to the best looking gas station in the Redondo Beach and the best customer service. That's my goal, and I like to reach my goals to see what I can do. So this is the base like the past. Now there's newer cars. Gas station mechanics open the hood like opening the spaceship. Mm-hmm. We don't have enough equipment for diagnose, and this business is dying. So to be competitive in the market, this is the number 1. We have to compete what the competition does or we do. So convert to the sister. And the number 2, having the base is environmentally and hazardous. All that doesn't fit today's needs. Before we used to do the mechanics, all this oil, antifreeze, all that is environmentally is not safe. So that's why I don't see any future. I haven't done this project, like I will say, at least 8 like this. And then all of them, anytime customer walks in, they say, wow, this is a gas station or this is something else. So I like to spend money to make it nice and clean and offer the customers more variety, one-stop shopping. Like right now, my customer walks in, do you have this drink? No, it's just this. Sometimes we don't even pump their gas because we need to buy the gas, we need their coffee, we need their energy bars, all that, and I don't have that much space to offer it. So I really appreciate the Redondo Beach. I've been there like 2 years, over 2-3 years, and I appreciate everything is going well. Neighborhood is nice neighborhood. I like to work with them, and they're my customers, and bring the bread and butter to my table is my number 1 customer. And I will ask your honor that project so I can work. I can do the business.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Vardaric.
Yes.
I guess I'll go ahead and ask a question because it's a convenience store and there's a Vaughn's right next door. So I'm not sure, what will delineate. We want our businesses in Redondo Beach to be successful.
Okay.
And you're competing next to Vaughn's with the same candy bars, the same drinks and everything else. So have you thought about how you might delineate yourself and
is a common because I can compete with the Vans. That's the question. I am too small to compete with the Vans. Vans is too big to compete. But the advantage what I have, gas customers, if he wants to buy a pop of soda, we're not going to go in the Vans, wait in the line to buy the one pop of soda, right? Or gum or something like that. That's how I get my business.
Okay. All right.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Let's see. I don't see any hands up. Do we have any hands up here? Questions for the applicants? Commissioner Hensley, yes.
Thank you, Chair Capo. Yeah, I have a couple questions if you don't mind.
Sure.
On the proposal is for a 24-hour convenience store. Is that right?
Actually, gas station is 24 hours, and convenience stores is up to by when you open up. See, usually when it's no business, we lock at like midnight or 10 o'clock. Depends on the sales situation. If you see we have to close the door for the convenience store, walk through the window, we do that. If you see there is no crime, there is no violence or anything, we can leave it open. Depends on the. I let my cashier on their safety. If they don't feel safe or something, I say go ahead and close the door at 10 o'clock or 11 and go walk through the window to sell the gas. Or if you need any big customers, they just grab it and give it through the night. That's what we do if it's not the safe neighborhood.
Okay, so it sounds like you don't always operate 24 hours, or the gas station does?
No, my goal is to operate 24 hours. I like to leave the door open 24 hours and the gas and the convenience store. But if you see, like in Hollywood, I have a station, some Sunset Alvarado, there's a station there. And it's by 10 o'clock, I said, lock the door, close the window because of the homeless or the web issues there. That's why we can work either way. So. Anyway, then after midnight, there's no convenience business at night. Like after few people will walk in that everybody mostly asleep. So.
Okay. And are cigarette sales and cigarette accessories or whatever planned?
Cigarette sales, there's not much profit in it, but I have to have it. Like some items, like the chips or something, you have a little profit, like 9-10%. But you gotta have it. If you don't have a cigarette, you lose the gas customers. This is smokers. They don't have a gas, they're not gonna buy gas from you. That's why we carry a cigarette. Cigarette is not the main profit of the convenience stores. I would say the 10%, 20% of that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Those are my questions. Thank you very much for your time and your answers.
Thank you.
Yeah, no, luckily Redondo Beach is still very much a sleepy town and very much different than Sunset and Alvarado, at least. Commissioner Hensley, no, I mean, Commissioner Hung, the screen is moving.
Okay, thank you. And Mary Ann, thank you for a nice, thorough report. It was very easy to understand and very well laid out. I had a question for the owner because in our packet, there was what was called a development letter in there, and it was kind of summarizing, the business. And there was one section that was called the intended use. And it said the intended use of the alteration is a retail shop. And then it goes on to say the items intended to be sold in such shall be as listed. And the second to the last bullet included liquor. And I'm not exactly sure if there's any non-alcoholic liquor, but I was just wondering what the intent is. It looks as though the proposed CUP is barring alcohol, but I was kind of curious what your thoughts were, if the intended use is to sell liquor.
I'm not planning to sell the liquor, either beer or wine, anything. Right now, I just want to have a convenience store without beer and wine. And I don't think so I will do the beer and wine because the advance is very, very aggressive on the price. If I buy 2 cases, they buy the containers. So there is no way I can match with them. I prefer don't go that direction.
Okay. And I guess maybe to staff, the question would be, what are the provisions? I suppose they could always come back, or is liquor just off the table?
Look, if I see the customers, they keep demanding or asking for the beer, I will put the papers in how many customers ask for it. If it's 10 customers ask for it, I'm never gonna do that. If I see 90% of my customers wants to have a beer, in that case, probably I try, but be honest to you, I don't wanna go that direction because get the beer and wine, I've been there, takes a lot of money, lot of headache, I don't wanna go that direction. I prefer to have less money when that headache to get the beer and wine, plus the liability of the beer and wine. Somebody drives in and maybe he was drunk somewhere else, they're gonna always accuse me because I was the last one sold it to him or something. That's why I wanna get the less liability on it. I'd be safer.
I'd like to add that the original letter that is attached in the packet, if you use the date, it is dated February 25th. And we've been working on this project for a couple of months. And since that time, the application was submitted. The application state no alcohol sales.
Yes.
And the resolution also states no alcohol sales.
I know what I said.
As all the other gas stations and convenience stores within Redondo Beach, they have no alcohol sales.
Okay. I won't sell the alcohol.
So if every one of his gas customers says, "Why aren't you selling beer?" Well, obviously they can't because that's a condition. Could they come back and say, "I'd like to sell beer"?
They could, yes. It would be a modification that would come back before the planning commission.
Okay.
I'm not going to go that direction.
Okay.
Like,
well,
like
I was only commenting on a letter that was submitted, and it has both your names on it, and it says the intended use was liquor. So I'm not saying whether you are or whether you aren't. I'm just trying to reconcile the fact that. Okay.
So it sounds like that according to staff, it was more for information, being a February timeline kind of document, right?
Okay.
Right.
Yeah. Okay. Very good. See, this is for staff. There were a couple of resolutions that were referenced, a 2010-12-PCR-041, and then another one from 2011. Were those gas stations?
No, we're referencing the shopping center.
Oh, okay. Thank you. And then I just had one other thing. It's just a clarification. I think I know the answer. I just wanted to make sure on. It would be page 4 of 6 on the staff report. Overall, it's page 161 of the packet. The second bullet under layout says that a parking space will be stripped. Was that meant to be striped?
Right.
Correct.
Okay. It's funny. It's funny how one letter makes it just the opposite.
Good catch, Commissioner.
Okay. No. Okay. Okay. And I think those were my questions. Thank you.
Great. Thank you. Commissioner Berg.
Thank you very much. Mr. Vardanian, could you just explain how much pollutants were there when you were changing oil and changing transmission fluids, and what's going to potentially go away? How much were you moving out a week? and collecting.
That location, when I purchased that location, I become the owner. Base was already payment. They was closed by previous owners. It was abandoned when I took over. I didn't run any business there as a mechanic shop. Just I opened the gasoline station, being closed almost like 6 months or something, 9 months when I took over, and I just opened the gas. I never ran the bay business in that location. Okay. But by the way, my background, I started the mechanic as in gas station. This was my start in US. I was a mechanic in the gas station, Arco gas station, 1990. So I've been in that 3 years in that business. And after that, I find out there's no direction I want to be. So I changed to become the owner of the gas station with convenience stores. And that's why I know what's going on in the base, in the gas station. There's no way you can keep safe because I seen in past 1994, the gas station where I live in the city of Glendale, there was the mobile gas station, got caught in the fire. And what was the cause? Mechanic was taking the fuel pump to change the fuel pump, somehow get the spark and burn the entire gas station, mobile gas station to ground. That's why it's not safe to have a mechanic shop next to the gas station. It's not safe for the public. It's not profitable for in the future to use.
And when you bought it, the previous owner had to ensure that there were no, I think Commissioner Berg is intending about, is there residual contamination?
Oh, wait, I did.
No, not residual contamination. I just wanted to know what's going to potentially be going away. I thought it was still an operating shop, and I wanted the public to be able to know that many gallons of oil a day were not going to be transported out of there or stored on the site.
No, what I have done, I spent like over $100,000. There was the in-ground hoist. We got the city fire department permit, all that, and we removed the hoist and we fill it with the slurry in it, and all gone. Environmentally, salt has been done. All this clean and environmentally clean to operate. Use the land. So there isn't any hazardous material or anything left on the premises. It's 100% clean.
Okay, thank you. That's all.
And I just want to say one thing in response to Commissioner Ung. Commissioner Ung, you were absolutely correct. The references to the resolutions noted on the application, those are the resolutions from other gas station convenience stores within the city. I misspoke.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, very good. I think Commissioner Godek, did you have a question or did it go away?
Yeah, it went away. It was already asked.
All right, very good. Is there any other discussion at this point that anyone wants to have? And so if not, then I'd like a motion to close the public hearing so we can deliberate.
Or I'm sorry, Chair, I believe Commissioner Hensley has his hand up, and then we will have just one public comment I'll read after Commissioner.
Yes, I wanted to ask about the public comment. Yes. Okay, Commissioner Hensley, please.
Yep, I had one more question for the applicant. Sometimes at these bigger convenience stores, like the gas stations, when they have either the double doors or some doors, is there some audible alarm, notification planned when you open the doors and enter, or is that not?
This is the option
at this point.
This is the option of defense of the owner. If is sometimes what we do, we have one attendant only, one cashier. If the cashier goes to fill it up the cooler or something, that's why I put the entry noise. If we see that something's coming in, we can come back. In my operation, always I keep the extra employee for clean up, merchandising, for the cooler, all that. I have extra employee. My cashier doesn't do both job. So right.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Great question, Commissioner Hensley. Thank you. Okay, so that leaves us with the public. Yeah, one thing I wanted to bring up is I was wondering how the public comments were from other businesses or so.
So we don't have any e-comments submitted. We don't have any members of the public that signed on to speak. We did receive an email comment, however, so I'll just go ahead and read it. It's
Okay, please. Yes.
I'll read it as an e-comment. So it's from resident Mark Nelson, and he says, "I'm fully familiar with the Shell station. In general, a C-store in the service area seems to have a de minimis impact on the local neighborhood in terms of home values, traffic, and other potential externalities. As with any development, I am concerned in general regarding noise, excess nighttime lighting, and light color, i.e. less than 3000 K per AMA guidelines. This does not have any significant development impacts, such as shading or extended construction to consider. Subject to limits on amplified outdoor noise, i.e. music or TV at the pumps, and additional lighting and light color, I am in support of the new owner's project." And that concludes the comment.
Okay, well, that's great. I think it's always
Okay.
very nice for the commission to hear from the community, even if it's just one person. So,
I have a comments on that. On the TV, there's some gas stations, we have a bigger screen TV where you pump the gas, starting advertisement. I just replaced the pumping, replaced brand new, no TV on it, because most of the customers, they put tape on it, duct tape on the microphone, we don't hear that. So I don't have anything like that on the package.
good for you. That's great. Yeah. All right, very good. So then, I think if there are no other questions or discussion, then I'd like to have a motion to close the public hearing. So who would like to make that motion? To close?
Motion to close?
Okay, Commissioner Godek, and who will second?
Second.
I'm sorry, who?
Rob Gaddis seconds it.
Okay, so Commissioner Gaddis seconds. So here we go, Commissioner Gaddick.
Oh, yes.
Yes, Commissioner Hensley, here we go with our little routine.
Yep.
Thank you. Commissioner Ong,
Yes.
Commissioner Boswell,
Yes.
Commissioner Gaddis,
Yes.
Commissioner Berg,
Yes.
and myself, yes, so that closes the public hearing. All right, so does any commissioner want to deliberate about this or make a motion to approve, or please speak up? Oh, Commissioner Hensley.
Thank you. There's a question for staff on condition number 1 about the alcohol sales. Sorry, I can ask a question on the conditions of the resolution, right?
Yes.
A part of it. Okay. The first sentence reads that conversion of the 3 service bays to incidental retail sales with no alcohol sales within the existing building. Is that meant to convey that alcohol sales outside of the existing building are okay?
No.
That would go against city code, wouldn't it? I mean,
Is there no alcohol?
Yeah, there no alcohol sales, and sales outside of a structure aren't permitted.
right,
Oh, is that it? Okay.
yeah.
Okay, then maybe I'm not understanding what the within the existing building language is trying to. This is a condition 1 of the resolution.
Take a look at that.
Okay.
Trying to open that up now. Hold on. There we go. Okay. I can share my screen as well.
That'll be great, thank you.
Okay, can everybody see that?
It's a little
It's
small.
Yeah, let me see if I can. Gotta. There we go. Okay. All right. right. Scroll down. Okay. All right. So the approval granted herein is for the renovation and operation of an existing vehicle service station, including conversion of the 3 service bays to incidental retail sales with no alcohol sales within the existing building. So that the intention of that is no alcohol sales within the new convenience store, which is the area converted. It used to be the service base.
I see. Okay.
And also it's the existing building. So,
Yeah.
wait, I meant.
Yeah, and there's no addition to the building either, so.
Correct.
Okay, that's what it's trying to convey, the structure. Is that right?
And it
Yeah.
is the outside the building, so I think it's.
Correct. The entire structure.
Yeah, so it's.
Okay.
And you say on the site?
No,
I think that's what you're trying to get at.
nobody gives a license.
Yeah. Do we need it? Wouldn't it just say 3 service bays, incidental retail sales with no alcohol sales, period?
Yeah, but it could be removed. That's,
Okay.
we certainly know how to apply this.
Okay. Okay. One other question for staff on the, my question previously about the audible bell part. Just personal concern of mine is we have residential directly across the street, on both, the north side and the west side. And I've been in some of those bigger convenience stores. Every time you walk through the door, it makes that dinging noise. Especially if this market is going to operate, at 24 hours, I would wonder if we could limit and they may or may not use it, but I'd like to condition that they don't have any sort of audible entry, exit, bell, chime. I don't know what kind of.
So like a decibel requirement on there?
Well, we have
Yeah,
decibel requirements. I'm sorry to interrupt. Go ahead.
No, I'm sorry. I just don't think I don't know if they don't need it, but it sounds like they have it more than one staff at a time. So then that's usually why you would use it. And I get to see it at 2 a.m. if they want to be open. That's probably okay. They have a lighting plan, but if that bell's going off, people entering and exiting the store, it could be a nuisance.
Actually, it's annoying for the cashier too.
Right.
Walk in and out at that noise all day long. We don't like that. So no, we're not gonna have anything like that. Because I have 2 employees. All of them. That's right.
So yeah, that's my only condition I would like to add.
Okay. Any other deliberations at this point by the commission? Commissioner Berg, yes.
I just wanted to ask staff, how many more gas stations in Redondo Beach are like this? Because this is now the second one that's come up. I know the first one, when the one last commission meeting, when I spoke with that gentleman, he was saying, the business for these types of auto repair shops is really just going away. So this is probably going to be, if there's a lot more of these in town, we're going to be hit with these things. So we just should be, really conscious about the decision that we make today, I guess. Do we know how many more are in town?
Marianne and I were talking about that today, actually, and we really don't have many gas stations with automotive repair or convenience marks in Redondo Beach. We were thinking about only one additional one down at Prospect and PCA that has some service bays currently adjacent to a very small convenience kiosk, if you will. So we could see that as another, opportunity in the future for this conversion. But Marianne, can you think of any others?
Torrance and Pacific Coast Highway.
Sorry.
But Pacific Coast Highway and Torrance.
That's already has a convenience store.
But it has the base still.
Yes,
does it?
Yeah, they did a beautiful job of remodeling. I mean, it really brought gas pumping at a whole new level with little mosaic tiles all along and really sense of ownership, and it was very nice.
Anyways, the Shell station at Artesia and Aviation when they obtained their remodel back in, I think it was 96, they have a tune-up Masters and a convenience store, but they already have the convenience store.
And a car wash.
And a car wash. Yes, you're absolutely right.
Yeah. And I think, this is the thing that we need to look towards, and especially, for the applicants, is how to delineate your gas station from others and the product that is sold there. Like now we have, last month we approved the new type of fuel for the stations. And so, whether we have, electrical charging stations and other things, I think this is a new generation of gas stations. They're becoming dinosaurs, so they have to be recreated into something new.
So I think Commissioner Berg, to answer your question, it sounds like we have 4, maybe 5 more of these that could be coming in the future.
All right, thank you.
All right. Do any other commissioners have anything to deliberate? Because if not, then I think we might be ready for a motion with a possible amendment. Commissioner Hensley, yes?
I'll make a motion then to adopt the resolution by title only, approving the project with the condition modified for condition number 1 to strike within the existing building, and to add condition 22 for no audible notification bell of the building entry and exit.
Okay, we have a motion on the table with an amendment. Commissioner Gaddis?
Yeah, I have a question, Sean. If we take out within the existing building out of the resolution, does that inadvertently open up the essentially tacit approval of building additions to the structure or additional structures?
Well, if there were to be any addition to this structure, we would have to bring that back as a modification as well.
Okay, so that language change wouldn't have that effect.
It wouldn't, no.
Right.
Okay.
They'd have to come back to the commission and we go through the whole process again for the new structure.
Correct.
But I mean, they put in within the existing structure, they put those words in on purpose. So I wanted to make sure removing it didn't have the opposite effect.
That's a good question.
Okay, well, the bigger umbrella is that you can't sell outside of a structure, so that kind of covers at a higher level. So I think we're covered with that. Commissioner Berg.
My only concern about removing any kind of audible noise when, bell or ringing or when the door opens up is, at some point he may only have one cashier there. And it's a safety issue, it seems to me, that if you're in the back and somebody comes in and just can lock you in the bathroom or whatever. So, I mean, what alternatives would they have if the commission, doesn't allow them to have an audible noise when the door opens? I mean, I personally don't think they would hear it across the street, but that's just their opinion.
Well, that's why I was suggesting like a dB level, which I have no idea what dB level it would be, but so that if they, luckily we do not have a high crime neighborhood.
But we already have regulations in place that would address any
sound,
excessive noise.
Right.
Yeah. So I guess it would come back to the.
But if we learned anything from last month or the previous accessory structure building, it's that enforcement of noise regulations is incredibly difficult.
Right.
And even in the condition that exists, if there are verifiable complaints regarding the impact of these business hours, and my concern with this particular gas station is the other 3 approvals were the gas station on Inglewood by the 405, the corner of PCH and Torrance Boulevard, and they're kind of more busier, less residential areas. And this one it's commercially zoned, but it's, basically in the neighborhood. But, so that's my thought.
Okay.
So would would that preclude having an audible that was in which the bell was located at the cashier station, which, you know, would serve the purpose, but if we had the condition in, they would not be allowed to have that. So I guess, I mean, I understand the intent. I'm just you know, it just seems like it's, you know, the audibles aren't a you know, something that's part and parcel of a convenience store that we would make a condition. I mean, if for that matter, we can make a condition with those you know, that they can't put in new pumps with those awful videos. We know they're not going to do it, but you know, you know, where would it end? I'm just talking out loud that it seems like we already have noise ordinances.
Okay, so, all right, let me ask a question, staff then. So in condition 2, it talks about if there's verifiable complaints, but it's specific to regarding the impact of these business hours and 24 hours. Is there a way to expand that, you know, or to change that to, because I'm fine if there's no complaints and it's not audible or it's inside, but I'm just imagining a, you know, convenience store being open at 2 in the morning and, you know, all I hear is the door opening and closing of people coming and going.
So Commissioner Kinsley, you'd like to add some verbiage to the effect that that if there is a complaint, it should include noise?
Yeah. So in condition 2, it says verifiable complaints regarding impact to these business hours. Is there something I can do to condition 1 to, actually, no, I guess that'd have to be a new condition or.
So complaints and audible complaints, add the word audible?
Yeah. You could add language to that sentence in condition 2, in the event of verifiable complaints, including noise complaints.
Okay, all right.
Okay.
Are you good with that, Commissioner Hensley?
Yeah, that'd be fine.
Okay.
Thank
Would you
you.
like to restate your motion now with the amendment of the amendment?
Yeah, no problem. I'll restate my motion. So, John, correct me if I get the language wrong, but I'll make a motion to adopt the resolution by title only, approving the project with the condition except modifying condition number 1 to remove the within the existing building language, and to modify condition 2 to add the language verifiable complaints regarding the impact of these business hours or noise.
Okay, so we have a motion on the table. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, we have a second from Commissioner Godek. So if there's no other discussion, then we will go through the roll call. Commissioner Godek?
Yes.
Commissioner Hensley?
Yes.
Commissioner Ong?
Yes.
Commissioner Boswell?
Yes.
Commissioner Gaddis?
Yes.
Commissioner Berg?
Yes.
And myself, yes. So move. I would like to congratulate applicant Vardanian and also the architect for putting the package together, working with our city, and really wish you the best of success and really recommend fine-tuning your niche so that you can shine from the other gas stations.
It's gonna be best gas station in Redondo Beach. Thank you very much. Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much.
And I would like
All
to take
right.
the opportunity
So
to
now
thank
the
you as well.
commission will, thank you,
Thank you.
Mr. Badvi. So now we will move to item J2 on the commission's agenda, which is a public hearing to consider adoption of resolution recommending that the city council adopt ordinances amending Title 10, Chapter 2, Zoning and Land Use, Title 10, Chapter 3, Environmental Review pursuant to the California Environmental Quality Act, and Title 10, Chapter 5, Coastal Land Use, implementing ordinance of the Redondo Beach Municipal Code pertaining to traffic, environmental impacts, and adopting vehicle miles traveled, also known as VMTs, as a replacement measure of traffic impacts consistent with the state law. So we've already administered the oath, but I will need a motion to open the public hearing for item J2. Can I please have a motion for opening?
Motion to open the public hearing.
Okay, motion by Commissioner Ong and a second from.
Second.
Oops.
Oh, I think I saw Commissioner Godek first. So a second by Commissioner Godek. So here we go. The roll call, Commissioner Godek,
Yes.
Commissioner Hensley,
Yes.
Commissioner Ong,
Yes.
Commissioner Boswell,
Yes.
Commissioner Gaddis,
Yes.
and Commissioner Berg,
Yes.
and myself. I'm sorry, this is going to be tedious, but we need to do this for the record. All right, so including myself, so we have a public hearing, and we've already administered the oaths. I don't think there's any new people that have shown up. So we will go ahead and receive the report from staff.
Yes, thank you, Chair. I just wanted to do a little bit of introductory. I know that the title of this agenda item basically does that, but Senate Bill 743, which was certified by the state in December of 2018, it modifies the California Environmental Quality Act, or CEQA, to require how the transportation impacts are evaluated to be qualified as vehicle miles traveled instead of level of service. We have utilized level of service in the past as our evaluation for the environmental impacts of a project, but per the state's new regulations from Senate Bill 743, we can no longer use level of service for evaluating CEQA, and we need to utilize vehicle miles traveled, or VMT. With VMT, that went into effect last July 1st, 2020, and any projects need to be evaluated by VMT. And the Office of Planning and Research from the state has guidelines on how to implement those. However, municipalities can adopt different methodologies that might be more specific to that municipality. And that's what the City Council has evaluated. We hired Fair and Peers, they're the city's consultant. We've gone through the evaluation of which methodologies, what are the baseline calculations to utilize, as well as any screening thresholds. And the City Council evaluated that and set as conservative of standards as possible. So based on what we're allowed to utilize for those metrics. And this is really just taking what the City Council has directed us to move forward with and making the adjustments in the city's ordinance and the circulation element of the general plan. And then as well, City Council will adopt the study requirements that have all of those standards and methodologies spelled out. So this is for the City Council, or the Planning Commission, to review, to make the recommendation for City Council to make those amendments to the code and the amendments to the circulation element that is shifting us to the VMT. That being said, we are not eliminating the level of service. So that level of service evaluation will also be done. It's just not being done for the environmental review. It will be done for the planning review for those projects that meet the criteria for needing that level of service study. And what we included, even though you're not making the recommendation per se on those, what goes into the transportation study, those guidelines, we included that so you could see that both of those studies are still going to be required And as well, Article 27 is not being modified because this is an addition. The VMT evaluation is an addition, and we're maintaining that level of service evaluation that's spelled out in Article 27. With that, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Fair and Peers. I know this is very, very heady information when it comes to what the methodology is, but we're going to be all seeing this as we move forward and we see projects come before us, and when they have to have that environmental evaluation, you will now understand, or will remind you of what this, if it was screened out and it didn't need to have an EIR, or because of our conservative standards, that project was required to do an EIR, and what are the mitigation measures that would be in place. With that, I'm going to turn it over. We have Nico Boyd and Michael Kennedy from Fair and Peers, and we'll be available to answer any questions after the presentation.
Thank you, Brandy. Great overview, by the way. I feel like I should just turn it over to Nico. You covered my talking points very well. Good evening, commissioners. I'm Michael Kennedy. I'm happy to be before you to talk through and provide you an overview presentation on the city's Senate Bill 743 implementation process and provide a more detailed summary of the implementation recommendations by City Council. So Brandy did a great job covering what Senate Bill 743 is, and it's a legal requirement, which is why we're here tonight to provide you this information on this change. And to reiterate, it's the shift from level of service to VMT that's the most fundamental change associated with Senate Bill 743. And LOS is something that, if you've reviewed EIRs and traffic studies, you've seen those tables in the reports. We prepared some of them. And as Brandy said, that's not going away. That essentially just gets summarized and packaged in a standalone report. And so it won't be in the EIR, but it will still be in the public record in much the same way that you've seen it in the past. But VMT is really a measure of the overall amount of driving, whereas level of service is really a measure of congestion at individual intersections. Next slide, please, Nico. So why has the state made this change? It's one of several steps that the state has taken to try and align the CEQA process with the state's goals to reduce greenhouse gas emissions. So when a level of service impact would lead to a mitigation measure, it typically would be to widen a road, add a turn lane, and increasing traffic capacity can actually increase vehicle miles traveled. And so the idea is to shift mitigation to try and reduce VMT, thereby reducing the overall amount of greenhouse gas emissions produced by the transportation sector. Other goals, such as improving access to other forms of transportation, orienting development in more built out urbanized areas of the state where people typically drive shorter distances than they do if they live more in rural or exurban areas, also helps to reduce both VMT and greenhouse gas emissions. Next slide, please. So what is VMT? And apologies, it is very wonky. We'll do our best to try and not use acronyms. We forget that we live in this bubble of traffic engineering, and so sometimes fall prey to that. So hopefully we can be clear and certainly here to answer your questions. But at the most, a residential project or an employment project. And VMT is typically analyzed on a per capita basis. So for a residential project, I'm one person, I drove 30 miles, my per capita VMT is 30. In a multifamily development, obviously you have more than one person, more than one household. And so that total population is what you divide the total VMT number from to get your home-based VMT per capita. And on the residential side, it's basically all trips to or from home, whether you're going to run an errand, you're going to visit friends, you're going to a restaurant, you're going to shop, taking kids to school. That's all part of home-based VMT per capita. On the employment side, your capita is the number of employees, and it's focused on that commute trip. So it's basically travel from home to the workplace and workplace back home. That's what you analyze per the state guidance for employment-focused projects. Next slide, please, Nico. So we'll be talking through the implementation decisions that the city council processed and recommended. And there are three key areas that are most critical for the overall shift to a VMT-based impact analysis: baseline VMT, VMT screening, and VMT impact thresholds. So baseline VMT is actually the number that a project's VMT is compared to. And Nico will get into that in a moment, but it's basically an average, and a project needs to do better than the average in order to not have a potentially significant transportation impact that would require mitigation. So the baseline VMT and the VMT impact threshold are the numbers that correspond with whether or not a project ultimately will have an impact. VMT screening is the evaluation of whether or not a project even needs to conduct a VMT impact analysis. And we'll talk about the screening criteria that the city council recommended. But ultimately, it's really focused primarily on projects that are small enough in size that they're generally not likely to have much of any transportation impact. And so those small projects would not be required to conduct a VMT impact analysis. So I'll turn it over to Nico to talk through some more specifics on these areas.
All right. Thanks, Michael. Hi, everyone. I'm Nico Boyd. I'm Michael's colleague at Fair and Pierce. I'm going to be walking through the rest of the presentation. And again, this is really wonky stuff, so I'm going to try not to put you to sleep. But for my section of the presentation, there will be a quiz at the end just to make sure that you stay with me. So identifying the baseline, basically the first step in implementing SB 743 and making this transition into doing VMT analysis is to identify the baseline. And essentially what we're doing when we do a VMT analysis for a development project is we're estimating the VMT that project would generate, and then we're comparing that back to the baseline. That's how we determine whether or not there's an impact. But what is the baseline exactly? Well, it's the average VMT for some level of geography, whether that's the 6-county region, whether it's the county, or whether it's something that's smaller than the county. So at the outset of this process, we looked at 3 different geographies as potential baselines. We looked at the 6-county SCAG region, we looked at LA County, and we looked at the South Bay Cities Council of Governments. And what we found when we looked at the SCAG region and LA County was that they didn't really provide a meaningful comparison because there's such large geographies that there's incredible diversity in their land use and transportation characteristics. And because of that, their VMT trends reflect, this mix of both really dense urban areas and then also these far-flung rural and ex-urban areas. But when we looked at the South Bay Cities COG, we found that because it's a much smaller level of geography and because it includes Redondo Beach, it's a lot more similar to the city in terms of its transportation and land use characteristics, and the VMT comparison is a lot more meaningful. So ultimately, the South Bay Cities COG is what we decided to move forward with as a baseline, and it's what council recommended.
And I just add a note, and I'm probably stealing your thunder here, Nico, but we also looked at the city's average as another potential baseline. And Nico can go into why the city council recommended going with the South Bay Cities COG average.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so this slide, we are presenting the South Bay Cities COG average VMT for 3 different metrics. Michael already talked about 2 of them, home-based VMT, which is essentially our residential VMT. It's all VMT that's generated from a residence, and then the home-based work VMT is our employment or commute VMT. And these are the 2 metrics that are going to be used most commonly for evaluating land use projects. Total VMT, on the other hand, is not going to be used terribly often. Most typically, it'll be used when you're evaluating, for example, updates to the general plan, specific plans, larger planning efforts of that type. But as Michael noted, we are showing the comparison here between the COG average and the citywide average. And as you can see, With these two most commonly used metrics, the city's home-based VMT is about 8% higher than the COG average, and the employment VMT is about 13% below that average. And we'll get into some more details about exactly what the implications of those differences are later in the presentation, but this does have implications both for whether or not projects can be screened from requiring a VMT analysis, and then also it has an effect on the determination of impacts. And ultimately, going with the COG average makes it a little bit more difficult in analyzing residential projects over commercial projects, kind of holds them to a higher level of scrutiny. It's a more conservative analysis for residential if we go with the COG as an average, which is why that was selected. So next up is screening criteria. So it was already mentioned that I think back in 2018, the Governor's Office of Planning and Research, or OPR for short, they produced a guidance document that was intended to help cities think through all of the different decisions that need to be made in implementing SB 743. And one of the provisions of that guidance was around screening criteria. These are criteria that jurisdictions can use to basically screen projects from being required to do the detailed VMT analysis. So the two different types of screening criteria that Council has decided to move forward with are project size and project location. So the idea with project size is that if a project were small enough that it would generate 110 daily trips or less, it could be screened from doing that more detailed analysis. And then similarly with local serving retail uses, if those are less than 50,000 square feet, those could be screened from requiring the analysis. And we've actually made a slight modification to that local serving retail criteria, which I'll get into on the next slide. The other screening criteria is project location, also sometimes called low VMT. And the idea with this is that if a project is located in an area that's already VMT efficient, it can be screened. And there are a couple different definitions of what we mean by VMT efficiency. What OPR has recommended is that if a project is located in an area that's already performing at 15% or lower below the baseline VMT, then it can be screened. But the Air Resources Board has recommended a slightly more aggressive cutoff of 16.8%, and that is what Council decided to move forward with. So let's get into a little bit more detail about these different screening criteria. So as I mentioned, with the local serving retail, we did make a slight modification. OPR had recommended that retail projects that are less than 50,000 square feet could be screened. But as we started evaluating that criteria with city staff, they actually recommended that we pare that back to 10,000 square feet because that's more in line with the type of retail that already exists in the city and the type of retail that the city wants to encourage in the future. So Council accepted this amended criteria of 10,000 square feet. So just to put that into context, if we had applied that criteria to the analysis of the Artesia Boulevard corridor for the general plan update, about 91% of the commercial retail parcels that were analyzed would have been screened from having to do the detailed analysis. And then the other part of the project size screening is the 110 daily trips or less. So what this table is showing is the land use quantity that would satisfy that criteria for different types of land uses. So for example, for single family residential, if you were to develop 11 units or less, that would generate less than 110 daily trips, and that could be screened from doing the detailed analysis. For a multifamily, we're looking at a range from between 15 to 24, depending on whether we're looking at a low rise, a mid rise, or a high rise building. For a restaurant, the range is 980 to 1,300 square feet, depending on the type of restaurant. And then for office, the cutoff is about 11,000 square feet. So the next screening criteria is the project location. And before I dive into exactly what this map is showing, I'll give you a little bit of context. So when we're evaluating VMT, whether that's at the regional scale or whether we're doing a individual project analysis, the tool that we typically use is a travel demand model. And in the case of Redondo Beach, and actually most of the cities that are within the SCAG region, the tool that we're using is the SCAG travel model. So essentially what the SCAG model does is it takes the entire 6-county region and it breaks it up into these much smaller units of geography called transportation analysis zones, or TAZs. And what this map is showing is all of the individual TAZs that are inside the city of Redondo Beach. And when we're evaluating VMT, we can drill down to the level of the TAZ and evaluate that on a TAZ by TAZ basis. So essentially what this map is showing is we've mapped the residential VMT, the daily home-based VMT per capita for each of the TAZs in the city. And then we've compared that to the baseline, the South Bay City's COG average. So the TAZs that are showing up in red are higher than the average. The ones that are in yellow are between 0 and 16.8% below that baseline. And we don't have any blue TAZs on this map, but if we did, those would indicate that those TAZs are performing at more than 16.8% below the baseline. So essentially, this is our screening map for residential projects. If we had blue TAZs on this map, and a residential project was going to locate within that blue TAZ, it could screen from doing the VMT analysis on the grounds of low VMT. But what this map is showing is that we don't have any of those zones in the city. So residential projects cannot screen based on that criteria.
And Nico, real quick on this, keeping this slide up. This indicates two things, right? We have the South Bay Cities Council of Governments average versus the cities. Remember, we have that, we were looking at the city of Redondo Beach versus South Bay Cities. If the South Bay, if we'd used the cities average instead of the COG, there might be blue areas on here. And
exactly.
if we had used the OPR 15% instead of the with CARB, instead of their 16.8% below, there may have been more blue areas on here. So even though, so what the city council was really more interested in was that home-based, the residential projects, and those, and really being as conservative as possible in evaluation of the residential. Now we have to use the same criteria, the same average that we're using for residential, and the same 16.8% that we have here on the commercial, which may have more blue areas than it would have under the cities, but what the cities average. However, what the city council really wanted to be was really concerned about was the impacts. Really making sure that we're not just screening out projects that are residential or have a residential component.
That's a great point. Yeah, going with the COG average makes it very, very difficult for residential projects to screen. Unless they're small enough that they would generate less than 110 daily trips, they have to go through the much more detailed VMT analysis. But as Brandy mentioned, it is a very different picture for commercial VMT. This map is showing essentially the same information, but we're mapping the commercial VMT comparison as opposed to the residential. So any office or commercial project that would seek to locate in one of the blue TAZs could be screened from requiring that more detailed analysis. The one caveat to that is when you have a mixed use project, if for example, you had a mixed use project that had both residential and office components, if either component fails to meet one of the screening criteria, then it has to go through the whole project has to do the more detailed VMT analysis. And because residential projects can't screen based on the grounds of low VMT, essentially any mixed use project would have to go through that more detailed analysis. So now we get to the impact thresholds. We've talked about What the baseline means and how we determined how to set that. We've talked about the different criteria that we have in place for screening some projects from requiring the detailed VMT analysis. But what happens when a project is not able to screen? How do we evaluate it and determine whether or not it has an impact? That's where the baseline comes back into play again. So what this table is showing in the column on the left, these are the baseline values for the South Bay Cities COG. And our significance threshold is the bolded numbers on the right. And there were basically two schools of thought on how to approach this. OPR's recommendation was to set the significance threshold at 15% below the baseline, but the Air Resources Board recommended a more conservative threshold of 16.8%, which is what we were showing in those screening maps on the previous two slides. So Council has decided to move forward with this 16.8% significance threshold. And on the next slide, I'll walk you through a couple examples to explain kind of how the process works. So in the graph on the left, this is representative of a residential VMT analysis. So this is a project that is purely residential, no commercial or office. The baseline, the South Bay Cities COG average for residential VMT is 13.3. So if we take 16.8% below that, that's 11.1, which becomes our significance threshold for residential projects. So this blue bar on the left is representing a project that has a significant impact. So basically we go through a process of using the travel model to estimate the VMT that this project would generate, and it clocks in at 12 VMT per capita. Because that's higher than the threshold of 11.1, that would indicate a significant impact. The project on the right, on the other hand, we estimate VMT per capita of 10, which is below that significance threshold. So that project would not have a significant impact. And then the same is the case in the graph on the right. This is for a commercial VMT analysis or for an office project, for example. The baseline is 18.4. So looking at 16.8% below that, we get to 15.3 as the significance threshold. And then again, the project on the left exceeds that threshold. So that has an impact, and the project on the right is below it, so it does not. And next steps. So starting with a quick summary of everything that we just covered. So again, SB 743 was adopted by the state in 2013, and essentially what it does is it eliminates level of service as the CEQA transportation metric, and it replaces it with VMT, or vehicle miles traveled. Effective July 1st of last year, all cities in California are now required to use VMT as the transportation metric for CEQA. But again, as was mentioned previously, that doesn't mean that the city cannot continue to use level of service. Level of service can still be used outside of CEQA to evaluate effects of development on congestion. So for projects that don't fall under the purview of CEQA, you can continue to use level of service. And even for projects that do have to do the CEQA analysis, you can do level of service analysis as a supplement to that. But for the purpose of environmental documents, VMT is what needs to be used. As Brandy mentioned, the city has discretion to select its own methodologies, its significance thresholds, and screening criteria to make sure that all of those components are ultimately serving the city's goals and are catered to the local context. And all of the methodologies, significance thresholds, and screening criteria that we've presented in this presentation up to this point are what City Council has selected. So summarizing the City Council's direction, what they have decided to move forward with is a VMT impact significance threshold of 16.8% below the relevant baseline, right? So for residential projects, it's going to be 16.8% below that home-based VMT. For commercial and office projects, 16.8% below the home-based work VMT. For commercial retail uses that are larger than 10,000 square feet, the threshold would be a no net increase in VMT. So VMT with the addition of the project cannot result in an increase in the citywide VMT. In terms of the screening criteria, again, there were two that the council has decided to move forward with. So we have project size, and again, local serving retail uses that are smaller than 10,000 square feet can be screened. For other types of land uses, anything that would generate less than 110 daily trips can also be screened. For project location, if a project is going to locate in a TAZ where the existing VMT is already 16.8% or more below the baseline, then that can be screened. And as we saw in that screening map, there are no TAZs in the city for which that could happen for residential projects. So that really only applies for commercial. For mixed use projects, if either component of the project fails to meet that screening criteria, the whole project has to do the more detailed analysis. And then OPR actually recommended a third screening criteria that pertained to transit proximity. So projects that would locate within a quarter mile of high quality transit could be screened, but council ultimately decided not to move forward with that one. So that is their recommendation, is to not adopt that screening criteria.
Nico, if we could stay on this slide for a second. The points I wanted to make and really why anything is before you tonight, I mean, aside from that we do have to utilize VMT as our CEQA review evaluation, is that whole point of this city council direction was how do we make it a little more conservative for our community and address the concerns of our community. If we did not adopt any specific criteria that are listed here, we would be going off of, an applicant could go off of OPR's, the Office of Planning Research, their recommendations. And that threshold, they might be able to choose, you know, the developer might choose to use the city's average instead of the COGS average. Remember, the COGS average is a little more conservative for us in the residential. They could choose to use the 15% below instead of the 16.8% below. So we're trying to make it so that it's really, it's going to take a lot less for a project to be triggered. And then as well, through OPR, they had, for that 110 daily trips, they had 50,000 square feet of the local serving retail or commercial. So imagine that if we didn't adopt our own criteria, screening criteria, that a project that's 30,000 square feet could screen out because of that 110 daily trips and the below the 50,000 square feet. So those are the reasons why we evaluated the different criteria. Really, we're concerned, I'd say, more on that residential than the commercial, but we wanted to make sure then as well that if it's mixed use and say the residential triggers that analysis has to be done, but the commercial doesn't, it doesn't matter. The whole project has to be evaluated. So those were all the components that City Council wanted to move forward with, and we're bringing to you the cleanup of the zoning ordinance and the circulation element that you also had in your packet. Like I said, those all of these criteria on when is a project required to have the study, and what are the criteria that they have to utilize. So I just wanted to point out what a project could do without us adopting our own specifications, and why the City Council has wanted to adopt something specific to Redondo Beach.
Thanks, Brandy. So lastly, action items include adopting resolutions for the following ordinances, and I will actually turn it back to Brandy if you have anything additional.
Yeah, so the resolutions, one is the resolution adopting amendments to Title 10, Chapter 2, which is the inland zoning, And then as well, Title 10, Chapter 3, which is the environmental review section of the code. And those revisions would be effective more right away. And then there's also separately, we have to do the amendments to Title 10, Chapter 5, because those are tied to the coastal. But we can't call it mitigation measures. So we've revised the language in there. I believe it's operational efficiencies. Am I correct on that?
Operational enhancements.
Enhancements, thank you. And then for each of these, the determination for the CEQA review of these ordinances is that they are exempt from CEQA because it is a requirement by the state for that environmental review. I'll turn it over to you, back to you, planning commissioners. I know this is a lot of information, and you know, if there are questions on the technicalities of it or what generally what has been done, just feel free to ask.
All right, thank you to everyone for this presentation. It is a complex issue. There's a lot of ways to play the game here with the numbers. I just have a question sort of out of left field. You know, back in the 90s, we had the Environmental Public Utilities and Traffic Commission, and then I think traffic merged with Public Works. And we do have a Public Works Commission. And so isn't this more like of a traffic? And so we're usually sending things to City Council for their approval, and they're sending it to us. And I was just kind of curious, because how does Public Works fit into this? Because traffic is more under their jurisdiction.
Yeah, we actually had the in coordinating this, you know, what the recommendations to City Council were. We did include the Public Works Director, the city's engineer, and our traffic engineer. So they have fully evaluated and recognized the importance of this. The reason it's coming before you is this is a revision to our land use regulations, and because these are applied to private development projects. So, I mean, they're also applied to public projects, but it's the CEQA review, and that will, you know, that is underneath the zoning. So there are zoning revisions and the circulation element revisions, and that's what's before you is, you know, recommending to City Council that they adopt those so that we're in compliance with the SB 743.
Okay, no, that's great. I really appreciate that, because having been on so many commissions now, you sort of see this fabric which is woven, right? And there's different chains of command. So I see we have a question from Commissioner Ung.
Yeah, thank you. Just had a couple questions. I guess the first one's kind of a clarification to staff. So my understanding is what's before us, we're being asked to adopt a resolution or to recommend to City Council the results of an approach that they had directed. I'm just trying to figure out exactly. They directed this, and now we're going to recommend that they adopt what they had recommended.
Yeah, it's a formality or technicality. I shouldn't say it's just a formality. It's a technicality that the Planning Commission has to review and provide any recommendation to the City Council on any revisions to the general plan, which the circulation element is a component of, and the zoning ordinance. So that's what's before you, is making that recommendation on those changes. Those changes effectuate. So the changes on those components, the zoning and the circulation element, are technically just saying that VMT is what we're utilizing for transportation evaluation. It's not even going through and making the recommendation to City Council that they adopt these the the methodology and the screening criteria and the baseline. But those go hand in hand, and we wanted you to be aware of it. We could have just come in and said, City Council wants to adopt this so that we're in compliance with SB 743. However, we wanted you to be aware of what are the changes that City Council's moving forward on as far as how it's going to be evaluated. It's going to be evaluated by VMT, which is what the ordinance revisions and the circulation element revisions are about. However, how that's done will be done through that transportation study guidelines that the City Council will adopt along with this as a companion document.
And it is
So where would that,
only. So yeah. So
so where will that be codified?
So that's it's adopting. It'll be adopted by resolution. The guidelines, they're not going to be adopted by ordinance, so they're not technically a codified document, but it's the policy document of what must be followed.
Okay. Kind of curious, what are our other cities using? I was wondering if we knew what let's say Hermosa and Manhattan were proposing.
I'm going to turn that over to Michael and Nico because I am sure that they've worked with a lot of municipalities in the South Bay.
There's a real variety, and to my knowledge, I don't know that Hermosa or Manhattan have actually completed adoption of guidelines, so they're more in the position of case by case as a project comes through. But yeah, we've seen a real variety. Many start with the OPR technical guidance as a starting point and have largely adopted that as is. So City of Carson is one, for example, that I think is trending towards that direction. I would say Redondo is maybe a little bit more on the conservative side relative to some of those decisions compared with other communities that we've seen. Some, like the city of Los Angeles, being a very, very large city, are taking an entirely different approach. And instead of using a region larger than the city, they're actually using their area or planning commissions as the baseline. So it varies depending upon where you are in the city. But for the most part, the smaller to mid-sized cities are either using COG or county or citywide average as their baseline, and either that 15% or that 16.8%. So you're definitely within the range that we're seeing in different cities, but probably a little bit more skewed towards the stricter side.
Okay, so are any of the South Bay cities using the COG as their baseline?
Not that I'm aware of, and as I said, for the most part, I don't think any of them have adopted their guidelines. Okay. I know Torrance is working on it. They're all working on it, but we haven't seen anything adopted at this point.
All right, first one out the gate. I like it. All right, thank you. That was it.
Remember that all this started in 2013, right? And then 2020. And so we're really quite behind the ball because we are in 2021 and it was supposed to be done.
But who's counting?
Soft date, right?
Yeah, I would put that on the state. It took them almost 7 years to get their recommendations out for local jurisdictions. So don't judge yourself harshly. You're just fine. And it really is ultimately about when those projects are coming through the door. And so that's really kind of the key driver for many cities. There's a big project coming in, and I just want to make sure that they have that control, how that project's analyzed.
Okay.
Thank you.
I've got two hands up, and I'm not sure who put their hand up first. Commissioner Godek, perhaps?
I believe it was Commissioner Gaddis.
Okay, because on my screen, you're on the upmost corner. So
Go ahead.
Start with Commissioner Gaddis.
I'll come in after you.
Oh, okay. All right. So Commissioner Godek, you're muted. Yeah, okay.
Thank you. So first of all, I just wanted to say that I am super glad that the city hired Fair & Peers to do this work. I've had the opportunity to work with them through my stint at LA Unified, and they are definitely top notch, and it is a well-deserved reputation. I have a question about using LOS and how it's going to be used if it's not used as part of the CEQA analysis. And like, if we're not doing mitigation, is it going to be used to do improvements and all of that?
Yeah, so there's a little bit of a dance there. It's primarily, honestly, a language choice. So there's a few keywords that really must not be included in that. So significant impact and mitigation being the primary. So other than that, from an analytical perspective, largely the same as has been done. In terms of the operational enhancements, there's certainly opportunities through conditions, for example, as you're reviewing a project, to condition that a project contribute to or potentially implement, let's say, adding a right turn only lane. But the only place where it's important to just be careful is if there are any secondary effects of that would need to be evaluated in the EIR. So throw out another buzzy term or transportation term, induced travel. So as I mentioned, if you're widening roads, you can allow more cars to get through. That tends to actually increase VMT. And so this really applies mostly though to, a new freeway lane is added on the 405. There's some guidance from OPR on spot intersection improvements and specifies that no, those are not presumed to induce travel. So the types of intersection improvements that you've seen in the past, like that right turn only lane, that's not going to be an issue when it comes to induced travel and require a VMT estimate for that. So largely through your project approval process and conditions, you'll be able to apply what we used to call mitigation measures to a project. It's just done in the separate report and then through your approval process.
So is there a scenario when a project would be exempt from CEQA but still require the VMT analysis?
Only in a location where it's a low VMT or a VMT efficient location, and it's a commercial project. So they could demonstrate that they would not need to do a VMT impact analysis. That doesn't mean that an EIR doesn't get produced depending upon other impact areas, not necessarily transportation. But if there's enough peak hour trips, even though they're in a low VMT area, then they would be required to do that non-CEQA traffic study. So I would anticipate that there will be some projects where you could see that, though the vast majority will likely be both.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Commissioner Gaddis.
Yeah, that's an interesting question, thinking through those scenarios, and that is, if in a separate, let's say both the CEQA needs to be done and a level of service study is done, and the level of service study says, well, this significant impact can only be mitigated through adding a lane, or adding a turn or something like that, and then it turns right around and has an impact on the VMT. So, I mean, that sounds to me, if I think about like the Galleria and stuff, like that's kind of a likely thing, right? Does that make sense? Or is there some sequence of this that the one can't alter the other?
I think it would, in the case of the Galleria, if the mitigation measure was to widen Hawthorne Boulevard, through the city limits, that would be an example where that potentially would occur. But if it's to add, an additional right turn lane at Hawthorne and Artesia, that would not be the case. So,
let's not get tangled up in the specifics. Let's say somebody wanted to build a mall or an amusement park where the power plant is now, and they said, well, that's going to have some traffic impacts, but a mitigation is to do a freeway flyover where the crossing of Redondo and Pacific Coast Highway is right now. So this is a mitigatable traffic impact. Wouldn't that have a VMT impact, and would that take a non-VMT, a project that didn't have a big VMT before and turn it into it by virtue of the fact that you're mitigating a vehicle miles, a level of service problem?
Yeah, and of course you would not be using mitigation or impacts related to level of service, but if their traffic study shows, okay, we're going to have a lot of people coming to this amusement park, at the AES site, so we want to build this large piece of, infrastructure like what was built for Mickey and Friends at Disneyland, and that's going to enable more and more cars to get through, then yeah, I think it would be fair to say that could trigger a VMT impact and would need to be analyzed in the EIR. So, practically speaking, they would both be done at the same time. And so there would be, opportunities for feedback. And unless you as a commission were, putting that condition upon that project, and that would, be this very large piece of roadway infrastructure, after that analysis was complete, then that could trigger, a need to kind of go back and revisit the EIR. But in general, those studies would be prepared at the same time.
I think what you're saying is it's an iterative process. The one would trigger the other, and then the other would have to be redone and such. Just sort of trying to understand through what the process is, given that we're sort of, bifurcating the methodologies between what CEQA is required, these changes that require this other analysis, and CEQA from the other methodology, level of service, which is the methodology that's been used to date. One understands, if it's an environmental quality that, cars driving long distances cause pollution, therefore that's a methodology that should be applied. Of course, cars sitting stopped at stoplights for 3 red light cycles, that creates pollution too. Sure. But I can sort of see, the logic behind the one methodology being preferred to the other. It is a concern, the idea that level of service, hopefully this isn't diminishing the use of level of service when evaluating a project, right? That's instituted somehow, right? Sean, maybe you could address that. You're muted, Sean. Sean, you're on mute.
Yep, I got it. So, sorry about that. Yeah, absolutely. And the way the LOS is still intact is all these projects have to be consistent with the general plan. So as part of that review process and the findings that need to be made, the requirement that the project be consistent with the general plan, including the circulation element, then pulls the LOS into the discussion, and we're applying all those LOS mitigation measure, wrong term, policies and goals to the project to alleviate those local congestion issues.
Okay. My next question is this. So we're asked to adopt 3 resolutions. The 3 resolutions affect different areas, the coastal area, blah, blah, blah. Otherwise, the resolutions appear to be basically the same. Is that correct?
Right. The findings are basically the same, just depending on, it just specifies the code. So let's start with the first one would be Title 10, Chapter 2 and Title 10, Chapter 3. Title 10, Chapter 3 covers all of the city. Title 10, Chapter 2 is the zoning for inland. So we had to have that separate from the Title 10, Chapter 5 ordinance-wise, because that has to go to Coastal Commission. We didn't want to hold up all of our zoning for that. And then the third one is the recommendations for the revisions to the circulation element. So they all do the same thing. They bring our language in the codes and in the circulation element in compliance with SB 743. But they each have a little bit of nuance to what it's addressing.
Okay, and which section of, and I'm looking at 10 Chapter 2, can you point me to where the circulation element is amended? Which section?
That's in its own separate, that was in its own separate resolution.
Yeah, so I'm walking, just reading through this, and of course, and I, don't have a copy of the code in front of me of each part that's modified, and it looks very straightforward. For the most part, it says, now we're going to use VMT, basically, if I'm reading this correctly. Section, it says Section 6 Amendment of Code. The following subsection B is recommended to be omitted from Title 10, Chapter 3. Can you just explain to me what's going on with that?
Okay, hold on, let me pull that up. Is this in one of the resolutions for?
Title 10, Chapter 2,
okay.
and Title 10, Chapter 3. I'm on page 3 of 5.
Perfect.
Page 3.
Yeah, so we had one other cleanup item, and I apologize I didn't mention this. There's one other cleanup item. We used to be under the LA County Congestion Management Program, the CMP. We are no longer part of that. All the municipalities, or enough municipalities in LA County, opted out of that. The LA County no longer has that county congestion management program for us to comply with. So we took, that was just we just did that. I want to say it was in 2019. So we're just cleaning up the language while we were already evaluating this. That doesn't apply anymore. So there was no point in continuing to have the reference to the congestion management program.
Yeah, this seems more than just a reference to some other document. This looks really detailed, though. I'm looking at B, that whole section B was statements 1 through 8. It talks about, traffic generated by very low income housing, omitted from Title 10. So has this been, all this language been replaced by something?
No, it's not being replaced. We no longer follow the CMP. So none of this is applicable to our environmental review.
Okay.
Yeah,
okay.
And we did that, I believe by resolution, it was by resolution in 2019, because it was right after I'd started that I'd worked on that with the Public Works Director.
And that was the resolution of the Planning Commission? Or the council?
City Council.
Okay. Okay. All right. Okay. Yeah, because as you were going through and describing everything, I said, "Wow, I'm not hearing this section."
Right. Thank you. I apologize. I put these together, a month ago, and had the city attorney review it, and then I didn't think about it in the presentation because we had so much to go over with the VMT. I do apologize that we didn't point that out.
And let me understand, see if I understand correctly, that all these references to screening criteria and stuff, that's all a totally separate thing that's being done at council. And it has nothing, these documents, all they're doing is sort of cleaning out the old language that's going to be substituted with all these criteria and such.
Absolutely. And, but that will be a companion document that the city council will be adopting at the same time as they adopt the revisions to the circulation element and the inland, and then they'll adopt the coastal has a longer notice period. So we want to get the others adopted and in place. So that'll be adopted at whatever meeting we bring this to them at in July.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, and like I said, we included that in the packet. What they will be adopting for the study guidelines. And if you, I'm trying to see, let's see if I can find which page that was on. It was on page 257 of the agenda packet, attachment A, transportation impact study guidelines. So those are the guidelines that they'll be adopting that talks about what the criteria, the screening, and what needs to be in the study.
Okay, thank you.
All right, very good. Thank you. Commissioner Hensley.
Yep. Thank you, Chair Capo. I had a couple questions. In the presentation, you talked about the VMT and the screening, like 110, trips. Is that right? And is that isn't that a net number, like whatever the current use is, and then the new proposed project and the difference?
Yes.
So if there's a current use there and it generates 400 trips, and the new project generates 500 trips, the net's only 100. right? And that will be screened out.
Correct.
All right. Okay.
Yes.
And in the our current, maybe this is a question for staff. Our current circulation element for level of service threshold, and I apologize if I'm using old language or SQL language or what, but isn't our circulation element threshold different than the old CEQA level of service threshold? So like in CEQA, when you used to have level of service, there was some threshold of significance. And in our general plan, we still use level of service. And I thought we had different thresholds than CEQA used for level of service.
I don't believe.
I thought.
I think you know, the levels of service identified in the circulation element. The city's goal is to maintain a level of service D or better. I don't have that in front of me right now. The CEQA threshold, and I don't, you know what, I might want to open this up for Brandy as well, because she's been closely at the CEQA section. But and it could be tied to the old CMP standard that was part of the threshold from the CEQA, or that was the threshold from the CEQA perspective, was maintaining, and I think it was D as well, which was the CMP standard that we no longer follow.
Okay. Okay, I thought CEQA level of service had like a 5-second delay or 10-second delay, and that's how they judge significance. But our circulation element had like, you know, 1%, 2%, or some other threshold. I thought they were different, like signalized intersection versus not. And maybe, sorry, let me pause there before I go way off a path or my road. I guess my main question is, can we in our general plan circulation element have a different threshold than CEQA does for environmental impact? That's my broader question.
Those are different documents.
Okay.
Yes, you want to align them, and let me take that back.
Sure, go ahead.
So we have to have general plan consistency between the general plan and the zoning ordinance. The CEQA chapters within the zoning ordinance. So actually, let me correct myself. They would need to be consistent. Based on the consistency requirement.
Right, but Sean, I think the point that Commissioner Hensley is making is that we're still going to have LOS, and it's going to have its own threshold that has to be evaluated, and that's going to be in the circulation element. And there's a different CEQA threshold that will now be based on VMT in the ordinance. So those wouldn't conflict because that's going to be the CEQA versus, and I think that's why we had to revise and change from mitigation to operational enhancements. And Michael, you had mentioned what the specific language was that we couldn't use when we're referencing the level of service.
Right. Significant impact and mitigation measure are the two sort of no-nos at this point.
Okay, and I understand, you know, council. Okay, thank you. I understand that. And could the city adopt a VMT threshold of, or, you know, impact or enhancement, whatever the term is, for VMT within our circulation law that's different than the CEQA, either screening or level of significance for CEQA? Can we do that or no? Like, can a city adopt it, you know, like as Redondo Beach, we don't want vehicle miles traveled to be, you know, 25% below the, you know, can we have a different level outside of CEQA?
I think that the issue and what we evaluated, and I'll let Nico and Michael chime in when I'm done. What we evaluated are based on very standard practices. So OPR had an evaluation of where they came up with the 15%, and that the air, what's the CARB?
California Air Resources Board.
Air Resources Board. So they had the 16.8 based on certain calculations. So if, and correct me if I'm wrong, Michael and Nico, but if we were to select something different, it can't just be an arbitrary number. It has to be based on some kind of technical evaluation that we've done.
That's right.
Okay.
You would need to point to substantial evidence for whatever threshold you adopt.
Okay.
And it has to be consistent with that from the state, because the state is the overruling body.
And if it's not, then we have to have that substantial evidence of why it would be different for Redondo Beach.
Right, from the state.
Okay, but it's not precluded. It's just you have to have. You can't. I get it. It can't be random. It has to be some reason, some data to support it. So, okay. Okay, I think that answers that question. I had one other question in the findings. I think in all three resolutions, there's a finding that these amendments don't require a vote under Article 27 of the city charter.
Correct. Yeah.
Yep. Can I get the explanation on that finding? What's the...
Yep. So I talked with the city attorney this afternoon on that, and I appreciate you asking the question in advance, so I could have that conversation. And what his point was, we're just adding and not taking away from Article 27. So we're not revising Article 27 since it's still going to be requiring the level of service study based on what's in Article 27. This is just adding that additional study for VMT.
Okay, so that's the justification for the finding and all the...
Yes. Mm-hmm.
All the, okay. Okay, I think those are all my questions right now. Thank you very much. This is a very dense topic, so it's really hard to wade through and figure out. But thank you very much.
Okay, very good. Thank you. Do we have any other things with public participation, or if not, then...
Yeah, so Chair, I just want to confirm we don't have any comments nor anyone signed up.
Okay, all right, then perhaps it's time for a motion to close the public hearing, if someone would like to do that.
Motion to close the public hearing.
Okay, motion
Second.
Commissioner Gudick and seconded by, I'm sorry,
Second.
by Commissioner Berg. So here we go. The roll call. Commissioner Gudick?
Yes.
Commissioner Hensley?
Yes.
Commissioner Ong?
Yes.
Commissioner Boswell?
Yes.
Commissioner Gaddis?
Yes.
And Commissioner Berg?
Yes.
And myself, yes. So the public hearing is closed, and now it is time for us to deliberate on the adoption of the three resolutions. I mean, essentially, the City Council is asking us to, it's really more of a formality, isn't it? I mean,
Can we make a motion for all three resolutions in a single motion? Or do they have to be three separate?
Lena, do you know?
No, you can make a motion for all three resolutions by title only.
by title only, which is
One motion unless anyone has an amendment or a change to any of this.
So Commissioner Ong, do you want to make the trifecta motion here?
Well, let me see if I can do that. Let's see. I make a motion to adopt the three resolutions by title only, subject to the findings contained in the staff report.
Second.
And then the second by Commissioner Gaddis. So we'll take a roll call. Commissioner Gaddis?
Yes.
Commissioner Hensley?
Yes.
Commissioner Ong?
Yes.
Commissioner Boswell?
Yes.
Commissioner Gaddis?
Yes.
And Commissioner Berg?
Yes.
Okay, and myself, yes. So it is adopted. All three resolutions have been adopted. I want to thank Fair and Gears, Nico and Michael, for their very clear presentation on a complex subject.
Yeah, great. Thank you so much, commissioners. I know this was a lot of information at one time.
All right. Well, thank you so much. All right. So now we move to items continued from previous agendas, which I believe we do not have, correct? So this moves us to item L1, which is the item for discussion prior to action, which is the discussion and possible action regarding the proposed 2021-2026 capital improvement program and its consistency with the general plan. And it is recommended that we adopt the resolution by title only. So staff will be giving us a presentation.
Yes, I'm going to turn it over to our planning manager, Sean Scully, to present the information.
Thank you, Brandy and Chair Topero. I have a brief presentation. Let me go ahead and queue up the PowerPoint. Okay. Well, let me back that up. That's a little premature. Okay, so this item before you now is a discussion and possible action regarding the proposed 2021 to 2026 capital improvement program and its consistency with the general plan. So this is an annual requirement of state law, and I'll quickly just put this on the screen. A lot of words up there. This is the actual government code, section 65401. And essentially, I need to move something here. The focus is that it's called in state law the coordinated program of a jurisdiction, which we call the capital improvements program. And it shall be submitted to the planning agency, which in this case is the Planning Commission, for review and report to the official agency, which in this case is the City Council, as to the conformity of the CIP with the city's adopted general plan. So that's what's before us tonight. We provided in your package as an attachment, the city's proposed capital improvement program from 2021 through 2026. And within it are a number of programs that essentially are the programs identified by the City Council, the projects identified by the City Council to maintain the city's infrastructure in really general terms and improve the city's infrastructure as required as there's growth and development in the city. So I just wanted to, and within your report, there was a few of the projects identified in the CIP to give you an idea of those types of projects. And here's a slide that just shows a few of them. And then specifically, I went through the general plan and looked for the policies or goals that really speak directly to that capital improvement program. So you're clear and comfortable with making this determination tonight that yes, the projects in the CIP are consistent with the city's general plan. So the first one is the sewer improvement project, the Ringe sewer pump station construction, and there's within our general plan a utilities element and a specific policy that states provide for the adequate operation and maintenance of existing sanitary sewer collection and treatment facilities. So, that's an example. Another one for drainage improvement projects. There's a whole list. This is one project that I'm showing for each one of these examples, and they're
very long list. Yes,
very long list. This is an enhanced watershed management program, the Redondo infiltration project, and under the utilities element again, goal 6B, establish and maintain adequate planning, construction, maintenance, and funding of storm drainage facilities, and to support and serve the various land uses and intensities of development in the city, protect the public health and safety, upgrading existing deficient systems and expanding the systems where necessary. And then also, the services shall be provided and system operated in an ecologically sensitive manner. And that project exemplifies that. Another one, a bicycle plan for the street improvement projects for Grant Avenue, and then just in general citywide bike facilities. And I thought I'd pull one from our circulation element. that's directly applicable to this. Promote alternative modes. Goal 4, residents and visitors should be able to safely and conveniently walk, bike, or take transit in Redondo Beach as they prefer. So we're constantly looking at our bike facilities as an implementation of that goal in the city's general plan. So, with that, our recommendation is that the Planning Commission adopt by title only a resolution of the Planning Commission of the City of Redondo Beach, finding that the proposed 2021 through 2026 capital improvement program is consistent with the adopted general plan of the City of Redondo Beach as required by Section 65401 of the California Government Code. And that concludes staff's presentation.
Hey, thank you so much for that. I was glad to see sewer at the top of the list because it would be a disaster if the sewer, the utilities were not functioning. So, Commissioner Gaddis.
Yeah, I just want to make the recommendation to the public that through the agenda they can pull down, what is a 105-page document, the proposed 2021 to 2026 capital improvement program, and in parens CIP.pdf. It's actually really cool to flip through because each page is a project, repairing sport fishing pier, improvements because of sea level rise, things like that, and has each one budgeted out by year and look at the amounts. It's got maps of where they are and photos of what's being fixed. It's actually really cool, and you'll see just how much work and money and planning it really takes to maintain a city, especially a coastal city with as many different things going on as Redondo Beach. So I highly recommend it. You can flip through it in just 10 minutes or so, and it's pretty impressive. That's it.
It is indeed. It's very well laid out, and you can really get a feel for what's going on and where we're going. Most importantly. Mm-hmm. Okay. Anyone else? Well, if there's Commissioner Hensley, yes.
Thank you. This is a quick question. It's actually on the cover of the CIP. How is the renovation of the City Council chambers going?
I can actually speak to that. We were just talking about that this week in our department head meeting. I think acceptance of the completion of the renovations is going to happen at some point in July, so that that'll be complete. I know that IT has companion work that has to be done as well to make sure that we're going to have more computers connected to the system in the chambers than there were before, and how the presentation screen, all of that, as well as the capability of being able to do hybrid meetings. Mm-hmm. So I know that we're not going, I think at the city council meeting, they discussed, possibly that third Tuesday in July would be the earliest that we could start having meetings in the new city council chambers. Certainly by August that we'll be having those meetings. And so I'll be keeping you guys informed of what we can do. However, we will still be coordinating, and that's part of that IT, making sure that that's up and running so that we can have the hybrid capabilities, because not everybody is necessarily able to get the vaccine or may have health issues that they're concerned about meeting in public. And I believe the governor extended it to the end of September to be able to meet remotely. So we'll see how the city council meetings work and work out the bugs for the hybrid system there. And then we'll probably be the first commission to try it out. And I say that because we were the first commission to try out the online system. So that's the status. We're super close. I mean, if you're ever going to time a pandemic where you couldn't meet in person, that's when you want to do that kind of project. So
yeah, thank you very much. That's excellent news.
Okay, any other comments or discussion? If not, then we might need a adoption of the resolution motion by someone.
Hey, public comment or is it still open?
I'll just confirm, there are no e-comments
No
for
comments.
the public to speak on this item.
Okay.
Right, and this one, just as a reminder, is not a public hearing, it's just a discussion item, so. Understood.
Yeah, I have in my mind that this is J3 and it's not. So
Right.
I misspoke earlier too. Okay, my apologies. Sure, then I'll make a motion to adopt the resolution by title only. The Planning Commission of the Redondo Beach finding that the proposed 2021 to 2026 capital improvement program is consistent with the adopted general plan of the city of Redondo Beach, as required by section 65401 of the California Government Code.
Yeah, we have a motion by Commissioner Hensley and a
Second.
from Commissioner Berg, was it? No.
Gaddis.
Oh, Commissioner Gaddis, I'm sorry. Okay. Oh, it went so fast, I didn't see the yellow blinking. Okay, very good. So I will take a roll call to for this motion. Commissioner Gaddick?
Yes.
Commissioner Hensley?
Yes.
Commissioner Ung?
Yes.
Commissioner Boswell?
Yes.
Commissioner Gaddis?
Yes.
And Commissioner Berg?
Yes.
And myself, I vote yes. And so the resolution is adopted. So thank you all so much. From here, we move to, are there any items from staff?
I do not have any items.
Okay, then we move on to item N, which is the commission items and referrals to staff. Commissioner Hensley.
I don't have a referral, but maybe this is an item from staff. Can we hear the results of the appeal of our decision?
Yeah, the city council upheld the planning commission's determination, making additional findings on, specifying the code section. There will be amendments to the code as a result to specify more on the separation between accessory structures versus accessory buildings.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, I do have one question on what is the Beach Cities Health District coming down the pike?
Beach Cities Health District closed their public comment period on the environmental impact report. They are, because they're a public agency, they are a lead and they have to decide on the project itself, on what they'll be submitting. They are the lead agency technically per CEQA, and we are a responsible agency. So they have to respond to each of the comments that they've received on the EIR. The city council did submit comments last week on that. It was they were due on the 10th, and they will have to do a final EIR. The Beach Cities Health District then are the ones that will certify the final EIR and make a determination on what project to move forward. At that point, they have to, prepare all the documents that are necessary for to come to the Planning Commission.
Okay, so that's still quite a ways into the future.
Yeah.
Because I know we have someone who's been submitting some rather long documentation to that effect.
Right, and we'll have that, since those are officially in the record, we'll have
Right.
those available to you at such time as an application comes before you.
All right, because obviously there's a lot of care and diligence that's been put into gathering what they have. Okay. All right, anyone else with any commission items, referrals to staff? Any long lost projects that we might have overlooked and we need to bring to the table? No? Okay. All right, well then I will call for a motion for adjournment. Who would like to make the motion?
I have a motion to adjourn.
Okay, motion to adjourn by Commissioner Godek and a second from?
I'll second.
Okay, second from Commissioner Berg. So here we go. Commissioner Godek,
Yes.
Commissioner Hensley,
Yes.
Commissioner Ong,
Yes.
Commissioner Boswell,
Yes.
Commissioner Gaddis,
Yes.
Commissioner Berg,
Yes.
and myself, yes. And so the meeting is adjourned. And I again want to welcome our new commissioners. We're full cylinders ahead. So that's wonderful. And everybody, please be very careful on the July 4th weekend. Stay safe and enjoy our beautiful city.
Thank you.
Well done. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
All right. Good night.
Bye-bye.
Good night.
Staff,